Hi everyone, welcome to today's Upcycle tutorial. This I think is going to be a really good one. We are working with old jumpers today, so it's going to be turning an old jumper into a hat, scarf and glove set. And there's a couple of different variations, so I'll post the link to the tutorial. The one I'm going to be doing is making gloves, a wee kind of beanie hat, and then a kind of infinity scarf. And I think I'll actually have some bits and bobs, some bits of material left over that we can work into some other projects. So this is good for if you've got old jumpers that you don't want to throw away, maybe it's really nice wool, maybe it's your favourite jumper, you can repurpose them into something else. If you don't, I just popped down to my local charity shop and picked up a sort of it's got a few wee holes in it, so it's not really sort of suitable for wearing, it's just £1. And it's a nice way to keep reusing some fabrics. I'll do a wee list actually of the things that we need. So you need a jumper, preferably wool, and if you're using a wool one, wash it first so that the wool is as shrunk as it will be, so put it on a kind of hot wash and see what you get out of that. We also need scissors. Today I'm going to be using my Overlocker, but if you don't have an Overlocker, you can use a sewing machine with a zigzag stitch, and I'll show you. It's not much different that you do. You just need to use a zigzag stitch to lock off your ends of the wool so that it doesn't unravel because it's a knit. You can also do it by hand. It will take significantly longer, so maybe if you want to set it up as a wee project to keep you going as a wee weekly thing, it would be a good thing to do. What else I'll be using? Measuring tape, some pins. I've got a wee bit of paper with my sort of plan drawn out. So you'll need the measurement of around your head for the hat. So let's actually just do that just now. Okay. Next look for me. So it is 55 centimetres. Plus a couple of centimetres for ease, so that's going to be 57. You will need the measurement. So the measurement for how high the hat is 2/3 of that measurement. But I will write this down in a wee second and show you. So this is my plan here. I'm just going to write down those measurements. So it's 55 centimetres head plus, let's say, 3 cm. You can always take things off, but you can add fabric in. So it's going to be 58 so that's going to be this measurement here. So you don't have to use the whole length of the bottom. So we're using the bottom bit of the jumper for the hat because that gives us the ribbing that you would normally have at the bottom of the hat, and it's the same reason why we're using the arms to make the gloves, because then you also have the ribbing. So I also know, you can see my jumper here. My jumper is a man's jumper, so it's going to be too big at the hands and also along the bottom for hat. So I'm going to do, 58 divided by 2 is what I'm going to make. I'm going to change this slightly, so it's going to be more like just 2. It's not going to have this bit in it anymore. Cross that out. And along here is going to be 58 divided by 2, which would be 25, 6. Maths is not my strong point. 29, the same. So I'm going to have 29 in the front, 29 in the back. For my hand warmers, I'm going to be tracing around my hand into a little glove shape. And I am also going to try and measure. I'm going to be taking off of the sides when I sew to bring these cuffs down to something that will fit around my wrists. For the scarf we're working with, it's going to be making like a infinity scarf, so it's making one big loop. So I'm just going to cut a strip out the middle as kind of thick as I can, and then sew that, like hem that up at the ends and sew it together to make a big loop and for a little scarf. So I'm going to see as well what I can do with. I've obviously got a lot of extra fabric here and here and around here, so we'll see what else, and also down here, so we'll see what else that we can make up with that. So here's just another breakdown of those measurements, just in case I wasn't probably very clear about that. So this is the shape that we're going to be cutting for the hat. We're going to be joining these two bits together and joining them around the sides so that it gives it a kind of more domed domed sort of seam rather than a flat thing. That's going to be a bit more 2D. So this is my head measurement, 55 centimeters. So yours will be a bit different. Plus 3 centimeters for ease is 58. The height of the hat is going to be 2/3 of the head circumference. So for me, that's 38.6. And half of the circumference is 28 centimeters, and that's our front and back measurements. So we're 29. We're 29 across here, 38.6 across here, and because we're going to be cutting the 2 layers, we're going to have a front and a back. Okay, so I'm going to get to cutting all of these bits, and I'll see you in a second. Okie doke, so here we are. I've got my pattern piece that I've just quickly made up for my hat pinned down. I have changed mine because I've changed the height to 26 centimeters because 38 was up here. And maybe if you wanted a really slouchy hat, that would be a good thing to do, but I don't. So I've made mine smaller. I've also realised that because I've got a V-neck in my jumper, the area that I have to use to make my scarf is significantly smaller. So I might have to have a think about what I do instead of a scarf, because that might not be a big enough space. But what I have done is I have just drawn around my hand here, very professional. So I've just gone up a bit above where my fingers come. I've done it so that the rib of the jumper starts just below my wrist, so that it will keep my wrist nice and warm. And I have really just pulled this line in so that hopefully this will be tight on my wrist and it won't be stretchy, because the rib will stretch, so you want to let that do its job and keep it on. Same with why this feels a bit crumpled, is because I've stretched out the rib in the jumper at the bottom while I was pinning this pattern piece on, so that it comes in, it'll look smaller when I have made it up, and that will hopefully work for us. So I'm going to get to cutting. I'm going to cut this one first, and then I'm going to cut the second glove so that I'm going to pop this on top of the other arm so that I have the same pattern piece. You'll notice that I've just turned my jumper inside out, just meant that I could draw on it in pen and not have to worry about getting any marks on the front of anything. Okay, so I've got all my pieces cut now, my hat piece, my 2 gloves. Haven't done anything about the scarf yet. I'm going to figure that out towards the end. So the 2 glove pieces, this is the first one I did, which looks pretty good. This is the second one, which I think is a bit smaller. I'm a bit concerned about how small the cuff is going to be. So always better to err a little bit more on what you're cutting than less. I've also noticed I've got a little hole here, so I'm going to have to repair that afterwards, but that's okay. I'm just going to be really careful with my overlocking, make sure I don't take too much off, or I'm going to try and ideally not take anything off at all, so that this glove doesn't lose any of its size when I'm sewing. The hat, you might be wondering how will this become a hat shape. So I'm going to sew up this is the open side. I've kept the seam on here so I don't have to do any sewing here. And what I'm going to do is sew this side. So I'm going to sew down this side and the same on the other side to make a more domed shape, and then we're going to sew across. Okay, so just again, you're going to be sewing in the V's on the front and on the back, and then sewing across. You're basically going to kind of almost flip it onto its other side, and you will see the seam appear. I will show you while I'm doing it though, don't worry. Let's start with the gloves now. I'm just going to get my sewing machine, my overlocker, threaded up. Okay, so now I'm all threaded up. I'm just going to start by overlocking around the edge of my gloves. If you are using a sewing machine, you're just using a zigzag stitch, and make it a smallish stitch, not anything over like 3 if you've got a digital machine. Otherwise, just whatever your machine's comfortable with doing is absolutely fine. And we'll get these sewn up. Okay, so that's the 2 gloves done. You may notice this one looks a little bit different from this one. I actually had to cut a 3rd one because remember when I was saying about about adding on a little bit extra for everything, so I accidentally cut off a bit of my thumb bit, and it was also just too small when I cut it out. So always, I redid this one, added on a lot extra, because this one is it's pretty tight when I put it on, but gloves are made. They're done. And now moving on to the hat. So we're going to sew up here, and then I'm going to sew down this bit on the front and then this bit. I'll show you what that looks like. So that's all those bits sewn up. That was the side seam here, and then I sewed that V in the middle and the other one. So now you can see I'm just going to sew around the top of here, and that's going to give us our nice wee domed hat shape. There we go. That definitely looks like a hat. And our gloves, I'm just going to trim all these threads now and turn them out the right way, and I'll show you what they look like. Here we are, all finished. I didn't actually realise that my shirt is matching the colour palette. So we have two gloves, which I won't lie, I did have to recut again because I didn't make the thumbs big enough. So rule of thumb, don't actually cut it like 3 times bigger than you need, because you can always make it smaller, but you can't make it any bigger. And my little hat can be, I think that worked out as quite a nice, I would maybe make it a bit shorter next time, and I think it needs to be a little bit taken off the sides, just so it's a bit tighter on my head, but it's a pretty comfy little hat. Yeah, maybe a bit tighter. So I still have so much left over, so I'll show you even from recutting the gloves twice. I still have this much left over, which I will definitely update you all on what I make from it, because I really like the colour palette of this. Maybe I'll make myself a little bag or a purse to go with this little set. So that has been our Upcycle jumper tutorial. I think that's actually quite a successful one. Maybe I'll put a disclaimer at the beginning to watch all the way through before you start making it, because there were a few changes I need to make. But again, like I said, I'll post the link at the bottom of the video. There's a few different things that you can do. You can make like a infinity scarf, I think like a cowl. You could do hand warmers instead of doing mittens, which I think would be really nice. Maybe that's what I will turn my failed gloves into, or like a little cuff. Just, you can kind of make a sort of long cuff that would just go on your wrist, maybe if you were just like as a wee bit of decoration that you could see coming out from under a jacket. So that's been nice. I hope you've enjoyed this one, and thank you very much to everyone who's been filling out the survey. It's really useful for me to get this kind of information from you, and I hope that we get to see you all soon. Okay, bye.